10%. This is terrible. Oh my god. We got it, guys. It's fine. We got it. Hello and welcome to my second video and second blog post, basically. It's lovely to see you all again. Not that I can see you. Basically, this video is my research into 4 different film genres, and I'm going to talk about the conventions and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it should be exciting. So before I start boring you with all my research and all the conventions, a little bit of information you probably need to know. The genres that I have looked into are action, romance, thriller and crime. So, first genre that I chose to look into and find its conventions was action. So yeah, the conventions that I found of action were a lot of destruction and fights and wars, because, you know, jumping around and dancing isn't really action-y, is it? Another convention of action is that there's always a mission in the film. So if you think of any action film like The Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fast and Furious and The Terminator, they've all got a mission as the plot. And this is obviously one of the conventions of what makes it an action film. Also, there's always a motive that goes along with that mission, so it's usually to save the day, and usually for the protagonists and the antagonists will fight it out, and then yeah, the protagonist will win. Another obvious convention is that they're usually always in urban areas, like built up suburban areas, like a city like New York or something, a modern city, so like New York. So if you think back to, if you've seen The Avengers, the big fight scene takes place in New York. So I think they do this to show that, so that the fight and the wars and all that does actually like affect everyday humans, so it makes it a bit more realistic, especially with the wars and everything, because I don't know, it's every day to have a war in New York, ain't it? Just every day. But yeah, they tried to make it realistic by having it in suburban areas. Another thing I noticed with action films, from the ones that I've watched myself and done research on, is that there's always a lot of explosions, and as I said before, there's fights and wars, and they like to use big guns to show off, really. No, I'm talking about like big, like guns, and obviously the explosions go along with that, and I think that's to add to the realism of the wars and the fights, and it just makes it all a bit more fast tempoed, really, because there's lots of shooting. You can't have a war without an explosion either, can you? So that of course just adds to the whole action of it, really. Also, there are usually stereotypical actors. They're usually quite, I don't know how to describe it, big bulky men. They're always usually really scary too. And these actors that I'm going on about who look really scary are like the likes of Jason Statham, Bruce Willis, Al Pacino, Jet Li, Sylvester Stallone, Robert De Niro, yeah, just people like that, you know. Another convention of the action genre is that, of course, they have very high tempo music to get your heart racing and to get you sitting on the edge of your seat, and obviously pairing that with the explosions and the fights and the wars and the big guns and the muscly men and the urban environment, it just creates a whole tense environment in the film. So that's why I have a high tempo music with like really like deep beats and high tempo, and how else do you describe it? I don't know. But the non-diegetic music has a high tempo. Same just a few, like as I said earlier, The Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fast and Furious and Terminator, all action films. But a few other examples are the Die Hard series, The Dark Knight Rises and the other Batman trilogies, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. That is a good film, can I just put that out there? Brilliant film. So yeah, as I've been going on about all the conventions and the actors and the movies, this is what I'd like to put in my opinion of the action genre. Some good, some bad. They usually always have a really good soundtrack, so if you think of Fast and Furious 7, See You Again, love that. Yeah, they always have a really good soundtrack, because obviously because they're high tempoed and like really good beats, they really get your heart going, and they really just really get to you, and they're just really good soundtracks in my opinion. They're always really fast paced, and obviously the soundtrack helps along with the fast pace of it, but it's not just like the music that's fast paced, it's usually like the storyline is fast paced. You can go from like some lovely family who are all lovey-dovey, and then someone goes to war, and then it all just blows up, fast paced like that. You just don't see it coming. They're always quite gory as well, so like quite a lot of people always get injured, and it's just a bit, so like gory stuff, it's usually when you turn away in an action film. And like I said earlier, you're always on the edge of your seat, and they're usually very, very loud. I don't know if that's just because the cinemas turn the volume up, but even like the diegetic sound, like not just the non-diegetic music is really loud, it's just the actual sounds of like the gunfire and the explosions. I think, like in my opinion, that is again just to get your heart beating, getting you into the film, you know, making you feel part of it. If it was really quiet, you'd be like, ugh, yeah, it's alright. Whereas if it's loud, it just sort of feels like you're there a little bit without having the whole 4D cinema. Yeah. Also though, they can be a bit stereotypical. So like I said earlier, it's like the loving family, and then war happens, and then the dad gets taken away, and then injured. So the storylines and the plots can be a bit stereotypical, and you can just sort of see it happening really, can't you? Well, called it. But they're always good films. Like I said, Jurassic World, brilliant film. So they're all the conventions that I found on the action genre. So that was my research concluded. So moving on to the next genre. The conventions of romance. I chose to look into romance because I enjoy them films quite a lot, and yeah, that's why I chose it. And I thought, you know, my trailer could be for a romantic film, because you never know. So the conventions of a romance film is that storylines are loosely relatable to reality, but they are very hyped up, and love is not like it is in the movies. So like I said, loosely relatable, not 100% relatable. And like I just said a second ago, the storyline is usually boy meets girl, falls in love. And there's the typical, they get together like I just said, and then they leave each other, and then they get back together again. Oh, you just love a good romance film. And it always involves the typical like connotations of love throughout the film, so like red colours, flowers, lovey-dovey like slow music, also help you feel a little bit more like there's proper love going down in the film. A bit like action films, but a bit like, this applies more to romance films and action films, that the storylines are really easy to guess. I think I've probably said that about 1 billion times now, but they are easy to guess, like the whole boy meets girl. But if you go for a romance film, you don't care about the storyline, do you? You go to experience the love. They're deeply emotional. And that's another convention. They're always extremely emotional, and you always get the ladies down the front crying with their little tissues. Another convention is that they always involve lots of different topics like sexuality, gender, status, and things like that really. And there's always a voiceover to introduce you to the film. So like The Notebook, there's a voiceover at the start. And yeah, they are typically aimed at females, but they're not saying that only females can watch them, but they are typically aimed at females because because females are usually a bit more into the lovey-dovey stuff than the men. And something to prove this is that they always have a heartthrob. heartthrob actor, and then they typically have a girl next door character who's, you know, the one that falls in love with me is, or anyone could really be in a romance film though. They don't have typical people. Like you see people in romance, you're like, oh my god, they were in an action film the other week. So yeah, anyone could be in a romance film, and I think that's what makes it the whole like loosely relatable, because anyone could be in it. It's a diverse group of people, just like anyone can fall in love. Just to name a few of the films so you know what ones I'm sort of on about, and you can kind of get that they use the conventions. You've got The Notebook, as I've mentioned, Titanic, Love Actually, Pretty Woman, WALL-E, although you wouldn't think it is a romance, Twilight, Forrest Gump, Clueless, all sort of films like that. See, I'm not going to lie to you, my opinion is that I do quite love a good romance film. They're cute, they're like a fairy tale you can dream of when you're a young little girl, but they can be a little bit of a drag sometimes because they are quite cliche and very stereotypical, but that doesn't matter. Who doesn't have a good cringy film every now and then? Have a good cringy film on the sofa with some chocolate. Everyone loves it. One thing I have noticed though is that they make the audience feel a part of it due to the fact that it is loosely relatable. So yeah, that was my research on romance films, and now on to thriller. There are quite a lot of conventions of thriller, so I won't go into all of them because that will probably just bore you endlessly. In one of the main conventions though is that there's always clear characters. So you know who are the good guys, you know who are the bad guys, there's always clear protagonists and antagonists. And again, a bit like action films, they're always based in busy cities and keep you on the edge of your seat with tense music with a heavy beat. Sometimes in thriller films, one of the conventions is that there's a plot twist. So like sometimes the film can be going in one direction and then it just completely flips on its head and goes in the completely opposite direction. You're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. But yeah, there's sometimes, not always usually, but there's sometimes a crime that happens. So if you think of Taken, Liam Neeson's daughter gets taken, and in Taken 2, someone Liam Neeson knows gets taken, because I haven't seen it. And in 7, obviously, 7 crimes happen. So yeah, as you can see, there's a typical crime theme running through thriller films. There's usually quite bad weather, so I think it's called pathetic fallacy. So like, something bad's going to happen, so it's bad weather. So usually in crime films there is a lot of bad weather. So for example, if you think of 7, the first opening scene, it's really bad weather because obviously something bad's happened, someone's been murdered. So yeah. The films, however, do have quite typical characters in them. They're not characters, actors in them. So you've got Nicolas Cage, I can't say her name, what is it? Charlize Theron? That lady. Tom Hanks, Christian Bale and Sigourney Weaver. Another one would be probably Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, people like that really. And the films, to give you all an idea of sort of like the thriller genre, you've got Taken, as I've said, 7, as I've said again, Heat, Pulp Fiction, Panic Room, Black Swan and Psycho, just to like name a few. So you know, if you wanted to go and watch any of them legally, go and do it, by all means. They're a good watch. In my opinion, thrillers can be quite stereotypical, but I think, if I'm honest, that's the same with most genres. They're quite stereotypical. Each thriller, in my opinion, is unique and mysterious. So like, not all thrillers are the same. Like you can't, although I've said they're stereotypical, this probably contradicts that, but not all thrillers are the same and they are completely unique, like each new one. They can be extremely twisted and a bit weird, but I think that's just thriller genre really. It messes with your head, doesn't it? They are quite fast paced, as I've said, with the like tense music, because you know, to keep you on the edge of your seats and to keep you all thrilled, they've got to be fast paced. They're also suitable for all. They're not suitable for all people, so not like 3-year-olds going to see it, but if you usually like romance films or you usually like fantasy films, you can sit there and watch a thriller and still like it. Even if you're stuck in one genre, usually a thriller film, as in my opinion anyway, anyone can enjoy a thriller film. So that was all the stuff I found on thriller. So I'm now going to tell you about my final convention, my final genre, which is crime. Yeah, crime's slightly different to the other genres that I've looked at. For example, it usually highlights the life of the criminal, and usually revolves around someone who operates outside of the law, so obviously a criminal, like I just said, and they usually come from a minority background, which sort of connotes to the audience that poor people are always criminals, but they're not. They can, like, typically they're usually in quite an exotic location sometimes, and usually the antagonist is always the law, so it's like the police people, because that's who the law is, obviously. There's lots and lots of non-diegetic music, so because there's lots of chases going on because it's crime, there will be lots of like background music, so mostly there is usually always a huge soundtrack to go with the film because of the amount of non-diegetic music that they put in it. There's always like the message that crime doesn't pay, during like that they're always trying to put that out there, so like the criminal will always get taken down usually, to like connote to the audience that crime, like I just said, doesn't pay, and it's always better to be on the good side of the law than the bad side. There's again like typical sort of actors and actresses that play parts in like crime films, just to name like a few. Michael Madsen, Christopher Walken, I can't say names, I'm really sorry, and Stephen Buscemi. They're the like typical actors that you'll see in a crime film, because crime film, like the conventions of it and the actors of it are they go alongside well with like gangster type films. So the films that like I picked out are like Scarface, Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, Gangster Squad, Casino, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, and so you can sort of like see and like work out the conventions and all, but oh, cool, crime film. So that's got that convention. But in my opinion, crime films always involve like a lot of fighting. So if you're into fighting, crime films, you know, are a good one for you. They're always like really gripping and like gory, so a bit like action films, and fast paced, like all the films I've mentioned basically. And they're always quite mysterious as well, so like a bit like you've always got to sort of like guess what's going to happen. They've always got like typical characters in it, like I said, like the antagonist is usually always the law, and like the bad guy is usually poor, blah de blah de blah. But like because of this they can be quite cliche, but you know, all good filmmakers and directors will not make it cliche, but sometimes they can be. They're also quite two-sided as well, so you usually, like in my opinion, you always see the story of the good guy and the story of the bad guy, which I think is quite good because it shows you like the contrast between their two lives. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you understood me. But yeah, until next time, thank you and goodbye. Let's go. Okay. I like to be cringy. Jokes, no I don't.